What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another solo leveling Arise video. Alright guys, happy Monday everybody. Almost in the new year, I can't believe this. The support program is currently down. The new season starts tomorrow. I just want to say a big shout out to my current top 10, IC64, Master Mix, OGD Shadow, Long End, and a couple NIDs here, Prohealy and Nelson. If you did not extend your support, unfortunately you will have to resupport when the new program is up. New codes will be coming out very soon. We have new missions already stated, so 2 new codes have been identified. Once those missions are submitted, tomorrow and the following day, we'll have more codes available for you guys, so make sure you go and support and jump on the friggin' coupon bandwagon. It's crazy because you guys, honestly, at this point, it's becoming one of the only ways to get yourselves a lot of the coveted prizes that we're looking for is through the generosity of the game. So make sure you guys are going to support. Right now, it is grayed out, so you cannot. So for those wondering why you can't, that's the reason why the new season drops tomorrow. All right, now, guys, while we have the time, and it is a little bit quieter, I do want to do something, and that is build a guide for the definitive ways to create or update or use specific units. We're going to focus right now on Thomas Andre because a lot of people are still asking a lot of questions about him. He is still in the draw for what? We have another 16 days. So for those folks who are wondering how to build Thomas correctly, what's the best way to use him, etc., we're going to go through all of that right now, including best artifacts, rotations, best places to use him, etc., right? Best teams to put him on. Right, and that's kind of the idea here, because I kind of want to break all the questions up in one video and just put them all together and just have all the answers available. So first off, Thomas Andre, couple things to note about him. Best unit in the game at the moment by far, best DPS in the game by far, and is pretty much useful for every piece of content. All right. Couple things to note about Thomas Andre. The main thing, of course, is the fact that he is, in fact, defense spec. So very important to remember when you are building his actual stats, you want to focus on defense. So ideally, here's what you want to build. If you're free-to-play players, you want to go 28K to roughly about 35K, right? Pay-to-win players, 32K, I'd say, roughly to about 38 to 39K. That's the ideal pay-to-win number for defense. Okay, defense is where you want to put majority of your stats. Now, of course, crit hit rate matters a lot. You want to hit roughly about 9 to 10k if you can. Again, over critting is important because monster levels matter, and as the higher level the monsters, the more crit you need in order to actually land your crits, because they have crit resistance that we don't actually see. And to know that, you can click right here. You can see the chance to inflict critical hit damage. The required stat value increases depending on the target's level, so very important. Crit hit damage, of course, very important as well too, and then damage increase. So those are the main stats for him. Everything else outside of that, really not that big of a deal, outside of course light damage, which he is. All right, so defense spec, very, very important. Weapon, yes, you absolutely want to push this to A5, A10 if you can. It doesn't really do much in terms of team utility, but Thomas is a very selfish character, okay, and he's meant to be all about damage and destruction. So increases defense by 16%, increases shield acquisition chance by 24%. If you don't know what that means, go check out the shield acquisition video I made. It'll explain to you. And then of course increases the user's attack, defense, and HP by 15% if you go to A10. So very important to try to push that. Remember, this does not show up on the stat sheet. That is something you will see as a passive in the actual battle. The numbers will show there rather than the actual stat sheet. Okay, very important to remember that part. All right, now that we've done that portion of it, many people have been asking the simple question, Payne, what's the threshold to stop units nowadays? So I'm gonna be real. Somebody asked me to actually make a video on every single unit again. The honest truth is there is no longer a quote-unquote minimum threshold. It's A5 or bust for the most part for units that you actually want to use. So for Thomas, A5 for sure. There's no question about it. So if you're a new player, veteran player, it doesn't matter. A5 Thomas is the standard, okay? A10, of course, if you can push him, but that's not for everybody because a lot of free-to-play players, of course, are going to focus on balancing it out and making their teams better. So don't choose anything but his actual weapon. Definitely go for that. Now, in terms of cores, very important. You don't have to go light, by the way. You can choose different ones, but it is important. Additional attack, crit hit rate over here, especially if you're not at the 10k mark. If you are at the 10k mark, you can actually switch crit hit rate over to crit hit damage. And then over here, additional defense for sure over defense percentage. Again, you can go crit hit rate if you need it below the 10k mark, or crit hit damage. Damage increase is a pretty decent option as well, so that's one you can go with if you like. And then the last one here, additional HP versus HP percentage. This one's your call. HP percentage gives you more for the most part, and then you can pick critical hit, critical damage, or damage increase. I would go in that order. Again, critical hit rate only if you're below the 10k mark. If one of these help you get to the 10k, then go crit hit damage or damage increase. Okay, depending on where you are in terms of those numbers. All right, now in terms of gear, this is very, very important. All right, so gear, The best and most optimal gear for Thomas Andre is Cursed 4-piece set, Obsidian 4-piece set. There's nothing better than it out there. A very close second is Warmonger. If you don't know what Warmonger is, it's a set that increases attack and defense for 8 seconds, I believe, or continues to increase it up to 8 times, I think, for 8 seconds. Let me double check. I remember the numbers off the top of my head. Here we go. Increases the attack and hit rate for defense, increased by 3% for 8 seconds, stacking up to 8 times. There you go. That's what it was. 8 seconds, stacking up to 8 times. Cooldown 0.5 seconds to do the stack. So really strong. The only problem with this one, of course, is the fact that if you miss the mark for the 8 seconds, you got to restack it all. And sometimes this happens at POD where the dragon goes into iframes, or a boss goes into iframes, and this will cause you to obviously lose the stacks and have to rebuild it. Even though it's a pretty fast rebuild, it's still not quite as good as Curse. So that's another option right there. So definitely going with those two are your best options. 8-piece Curse is viable. It's just not as optimal. The only reason why you want to go 8-piece Curse, like I'm doing on my free-to-play, is for the combat power, because it is level 78 gear versus level 75. But this by far is the best possible gear you can go with. If you ever need to know what to choose, guys, you can go recommend it set here. You guys can see exactly what they recommend. I do not recommend Guardian, by the way. It's inferior to these three, but just in case you are wondering, and if you ever want to know what you need for artifacts, you can also see in terms of what artifacts they recommend as well. Also, real quick, you guys can see right up here, defense, damage increase, and critical hit damage is what they recommend for stats. On Thomas, they should definitely be putting crit hit rate on here. I don't know why they don't, but you definitely want that built up. Okay, so very important to remember that, guys. This is the most optimal set for him, almost by all standards. Okay, now let's talk about his skills. Skills are very important. Now you guys can see this new little feature here they have, and this is actually very accurate. You click on this right button here, it actually explains to you how to use them correctly. The rotation is perfect. So you definitely want to do this skill first, Absolute Demolition, into Gigantic Hammer, into the basic skill Colossal Crush, into the core attack, into ultimate skill. Okay, now the reason why you do this order, and this, I mean, you can change this order depending on who you're fighting. This skill, the Colossal Crush, is actually used to do more damage, not more damage, but to do damage on bosses better than the Absolute Demolition. But Absolute Demolition is actually great for AoE because it has a vacuum effect where it brings opponents in and will actually suck them in and do more damage to them. You can check the preview out here, but when he does this right here, that actually will bring in the opponents to you and do AoE damage, versus this, which is a more of a single target attack, which also does insane damage. Now the core attack is very important for him because he does get a shield acquisition, plus does insane amounts of damage with it as well too, as well as a support skill, one of the best support skills for SJW in the game. Steel armor, when the user gains a shield, it increases their critical hit rate and critical hit damage by 10%, plus gaining a shield 10% of Andre's defense. So remember, more defense you stack for him, the more the shield is for SJW. And then lastly, of course, the ultimate skill called Black Hole Crush. Before that, he becomes a Steel Tyrant. Steel Tyrant amplifies every single move that he has. The vacuum on this becomes bigger, the damage on this becomes stronger, and overall the Black Hole Crush here is very, very powerful because it does insane damage, number one, which is AoE, and then number two also deals light damage, and then lastly, the bigger the shield, the more damage he does, up to 20% more damage based on how much shield you have left. So remember, guys, you do want to do a full rotation in that mode. So when you are fighting somebody, okay, when you are fighting anybody, actually, doesn't matter who it is. Let's just show you guys a rotation here, right? Let's go in, and let's just say I wanna use the following team. Let's go Gunhee, Thomas, and we'll go Cha. I'll just show you guys real quick with this setup how you want to run him. Okay, now this is on my pay-to-win account. I got POS 20 on my free-to-play account as well too. I just want to show you guys because I have more gear on my free-to-play, so you guys can see what the difference is. But when you are fighting an opponent, any opponent, doesn't really matter who it is. I'm just gonna go into here. Let me just dodge this. So let's just do this real quick. Now you guys will see right away in this rotation, we take away this, we bring in Gunhee, and you do the light damage on there. Bring in Thomas, you do your full rotation till you get your Tyrant up. Right, look at that, full rotation, and then you do this, you go full rotation again. Now if you're fighting AoE mobs, start with Absolute Demolition right there, would have vacuumed it in, core attack, going into the crush, core attack, and then here you would ideally do this skill before your light is off, right? And you guys can see the max amount of damage gets pushed through because of that. So very important to do that. Now remember, the cooldown is about 30-ish seconds, so if you can maintain that as long as you possibly can before you're doing your ultimate and go back into using Thomas, you can build your ultimate up almost instantaneously and redo it again. So that's the cool thing about Thomas. He doesn't have the conventional normal way of being built up for ultimates. You can build his ultimate the same way with Charlotte. there's a longer time frame, but you're also in your ultimate phase a lot longer. So try to stay with that ultimate phase for a few rotations. And what I would recommend is when you see in the bottom the Steel Tyrant's about to flash and go away, do your ultimate then. But also remember this, you can tag out and keep your ultimate intact. So what I normally do is when I do my ultimate, or before I do my ultimate, I bring Gun Heat in first, do another light elemental damage on the opponent, so the debuff is up, do Branded by Cha, bring him in afterward, and then cast my ultimate, and that way I get the full debuff buff rotation, plus my ultimate still intact. So remember, you can in fact switch with Thomas when he's in Goliath mode, and keep it when you switch back in. That is very, very important. So there you guys go. That is what you want to do in terms of Thomas, guys. That is the full scope of a good Thomas build. The rotations are perfect. The skills, you guys can see what you need to focus on, and is easily the best character in the game. So anyone who's been thinking of skipping him, or for some reason if you're brand new and you're wondering should you go for him, you should absolutely push him to A5 minimum, A10 if you possibly can. All right, folks, this is Payne. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.